Hello everyone, Mrs. Geek here with another video. I've been reading your comments recently, and a common thing that has come up in here is a video on the 12-mark question. Now this is a great one because if you nail this question, you can pretty much improve your score by around 2 grades, which is incredible. And the great thing about this one is it's always going to be the same structure. So once you've got it down and you've done it a few times, it's really easy to replicate in an exam. So we're going to go through some examples, we'll have a look at how to structure it, and hopefully we'll have a go at improving your grade. Let's get started. Okay everyone, so here is my suggested structure for how to do the 12-mark question. Now you may find your teachers do something slightly differently, and that's fine. And the reason why is that there is no real Bible or guide on how to answer this question, okay? So it all comes down to kind of just making sure you get the key points in here. So I always suggest starting with suitability. Now, what is the purpose of the document you're looking at? Who is it for? Now, don't make the mistake of doing the end user. They'll always tell you in the question who it's going to be for. So it could be an animator or a graphic designer or something like that. So make sure you get that on there. Then you're going to go into 2 strengths and why they're a strength. So I usually suggest stating a strength, telling me why it's a strength, stating another strength, why is it a strength, and then going on and do the same with the weaknesses before finishing up with some improvements. So suggest an improvement. How can the designer make whatever the document is better for the intended target audience? The only other thing with this question to note is that it's the only question in the exam that will give you marks based on your structure, so your writing in full sentences, your spelling and your grammar. So you can't just do this as a list of bullet points. Even though that might seem logical to you, it will limit you to, say, 4 marks maximum. It's the only question on here that does test your ability to write full sentences with good spelling and grammar. Obviously, there is some leeway in there. So what I thought we'd do is we'll have a look at some exam questions, but I thought we'd start by looking at a mark scheme so you can see how the marks are awarded for these sorts of questions. So let's go over and have a look now, shall we? Okay, so in front of me now I've got a mark scheme. So this is from one of the questions that we're going to have a look at in a minute. And you can see here there's 3 mark bands. You've got a level 1, which is the lowest, a level 2 and a level 3. Now if you've done any of the coursework units yet, you might be a little bit familiar with these. It's a similar sort of structure. So here you can see to get a level 3, you have to have a clear explanation of the suitability of in this case it was a mood board, by its target audience. So you see it's not going to be the end user. In this case it was a production team. Your equal strengths and weaknesses, which is why I always suggest doing 2 of each, and a suggested improvement that is like kind of explained in the context. So say for example, if it's for a magazine, you're going to mention why it will help with the overall magazine, etc. Using subject specific terminology. So if it's a mood board, for example, you're going to talk about fonts, colors. You might talk about the layout, for example. If it was a visualization diagram, you might talk about annotations and layout, etc, etc. So putting those in there also help. And as you can see here, going down the bottom, answers presented as a list will limit you to a maximum of 4 marks in here. So you do need to make sure this is written in like sentences, paragraphs, and with good structure, with grammar and spelling. Obviously, there is some allowances for, you know, a little bit of spelling mistakes on there. So what we do now is we'll have a look at 4 different 12-mark questions. Now you can go through this video. I've put it in chapters, so you can go through and have a look at any particular one you want to. Okay, and we'll go through how I first analyze the document and then how we go about answering the question. So let's have a look at the first one, shall we? Okay, so here's example 1. Now we've got a storyboard here. Now the first thing I recommend you do in the exam is use a highlighter or a pencil and just go through the question and highlight anything that's going to be useful when it comes to actually answering this question. So I know that the name of the company is Visualisation. It's a comic and internet-based animation series focused on Velocity Girl. So that's the character in it. The comic and animation will be released at the same time. Might not be useful, but it's always good to understand. So this is a storyboard, and it's for the opening sequence or the opening titles of the webisode, so the animation. And it's going to be given to the animator, who is then going to create the title sequence from this. So once you've got that, we now know what the document is, who it's for, what the context is. It's an animation series, and it's the opening titles for those animation series. So what we've got here is we've got a 6-shot storyboard, and the next thing I'm going to suggest you do is just to the side of it or on the back of a page or whatever you want to, just do 2 columns. So you want one with strengths and one with weaknesses. So I'm going to start with strengths here, and then I'm going to go down here and do weaknesses. And all you're going to do, based on your knowledge of these documents, which you already have, is tell me what is good about this one. So I can see straight away that the person on here has put the time duration, which is going to be really helpful when it comes to for the animator to know how long each shot should last for. So I'm going to put duration down here. Another thing they've put on here is they've included images on here. So I'm going to put images down as a strength as well. And they've also put in the text color and background. So I'm going to put background and text color. So I've got 3 here to choose from, even though I only need 2. Then we're going to have a look at the weaknesses. So first thing I notice here, none of these are numbered. So if you ever get a storyboard question in an exam, always number your shots. It's an easy way to get a mark. So no shot numbers. There's also no camera information here, so no virtual camera. There's obviously still going to be a virtual camera, but nothing on here about where the virtual camera should be. So no virtual camera angle or movement. Now you've got an idea from here, obviously, that it's going to move across the screen, but we're still not sure on that one. And again, nothing on here to indicate whether there should be like a different background on here. Is this just going to be a solid blue color and that's it? So more detail on the background. So now I've got 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, and I'm going to take those and use them to structure my answer. So let's go on to a blank page now. So you see here it says discuss the suitability of the storyboard in figure 3 for the opening title sequence of the webisodes for Velocity Girl series, including some improvements in here. So let's go on to the next page and do it on there. That's I've got a nice blank page set up. Here we go. Alright, so I'm going to add my text again. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing you're going to do is start with an opening. So I will say the storyboard in figure 3 that has been produced for the opening title sequence of the Velocity Girl webisode is partially suitable for the animator. Okay, so I've mentioned that it's storyboard, I've mentioned what it's for, and I've mentioned that it's going to be given to the animator. This is because, and it's just going to give like a really brief summary here. So this is because it has some helpful elements such as images, and it has durations and some annotations. However, it is lacking some, oh gosh, I can't spell, lacking some fundamental parts such as virtual camera. And the reason I'm putting virtual camera is because we know it's an animation, so it's not going to have an actual camera in there. Virtual camera movements and angles which might hinder the animation process. Alright, so we've got our suitability done there. So now we're going to move on to the strengths. So I'm going to say one of the strengths of this storyboard is the inclusion of shot durations. This is helpful to the animator as they will know how long each shot should last for. Okay, one strength done. Further strength of the storyboard is that there are images included for each shot. This means that the animator will know where people and text should be positioned for the opening sequence. So again, I've linked it to the scenario. That's our 2 strengths done. So now I'm going to go into the weaknesses. However, one of the weaknesses is a lack of virtual camera angles and movements. This will cause confusion for the animator as he will not know, also as they will not know where to position the virtual cameras for each shot, which means they might create the animation incorrectly. One weakness done. A further weakness of the storyboard is that there, and let's have a look at it again. Now, one thing I have noticed is there's no sound effects or movement on here actually, so that's another one we can talk about. But I'm going to go for the shot numbers, so we'll come back to the sounds on there. Actually, let's go for the sound on there. Is that there are no sound effects or dialogue included. This will cause problems when creating the animation, as the animator will have no guidance on any sounds that they should include in the opening title sequence. So now I'm going to go on to the improvements. So to improve the storyboard, I would suggest that shot numbers are added to make it clear the order in which the animation should be created. This will avoid any confusion for the animator. I would also suggest clearer annotations and details about what sound, backgrounds and camera angles should be used so that the animator can clearly create what the client wants. Voila, all done. Okay, so that's our first one done. And as you can see here, if I zoom out a little bit, we've just got this nice structure here. We've got introduction here, one strength, another strength, one weakness, another weakness, and an improvement. And that structure there is exactly what they asked for in your 12-mark question. So let's now have a look at a second example. So this example here, I'm going to do exactly the same. Grab my highlighter. So I know that this is going to be it is obviously a mind map, and it's about the possible house style. So not actually the magazine itself, but a house style for the magazine, and the mind map's going to be given to the graphics department of the magazine. Now there isn't a bit in here. Oh, here we go. So we know the magazine's called BG style. There we go. And it's for teenagers. Okay, so looking at this now, we're going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to draw my little text box here, and we're going to pick out some instant strengths and weaknesses. So let me start with a strength here. So strength here, is there a central node? Yeah, a central node that says house style, so we know what it's about. So central node which is clearly labelled. We also know there's a variety of subnodes. We've got font, colour, image. These are all relevant to a house style. So relevant subnodes. We know that there are items that are collected by branches. So branch connections. There we go. So let's go on to the weaknesses. So obviously there's a few problems here. So we have got floating elements here that are not connected by branches. We have got some confusing elements. So obviously, for example, you've got photos here, and you just got small and then text wrap and thick border, and that doesn't really make much sense. And there's also some vague information here. So font sans serif is quite limited. It's not going to be enough to help you create a style. So limited detail I'm going to put on here as well. Okay, well, with that, we're going to do exactly the same again. So I'm just going to go on to this next page. Here we go. There we go. So let's have my text box again, and let's see what we can do. So we're going to start again with our introduction. So I'm going to say the mind map in figure 2 is not particularly suitable to give to the graphics department in order to create a house style for the BG style magazine. Whilst there is a clear central node, a lot of other subnodes and elements are not clearly linked, which will cause confusion when creating a house style. And that's our introduction done. Okay, so we've stated what the mind map is, we've stated who it's for, we've given the context of the magazine, and now we're going to go into more detail with our strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so I'm going to say on here is one strength of the mind map is the inclusion of a central node with a relevant heading. The graphics department will know that this is our style, so there will be no confusion with other mind maps. Okay, first strength done. A further strength is the inclusion of relevant subnodes such as font, color, and images. These are all helpful for the graphics department in developing the house style for the magazine. Alright, so we've got our 2 strengths done now, and we're just going to repeat the same thing again into the weaknesses. So I'm going to say, however, although there are a number of subnodes, some are not properly connected by branches. So this is a really great one to show your subject terminology, because these are all great key terms on here. This can lead to confusion for the graphics department, as they will not know where these elements should belong. And you can give some examples on here as well. For example, as you can see on this one here, you've got size and cartoon character just floating randomly. So for example, size and cartoon character are not connected at all. Alright, so I'm going to put secondly, so a further weakness of this document is that not all of the content is relevant to the magazine. For example, under images, it talks about borders, which doesn't help the graphics department to create the house style. And you can also then talk about the font as well, because obviously for font it's just got sans serif. And then you can say further to this, under font there is only one connection of sans serif, which is very vague for the graphics department. Okay, so what you could go on to next to talk about improvements. Now, something like a house style, I feel like needs to have some visual information in there. Now, obviously, there may be a mood board that accompanies it, but for example, when it comes to fonts, you might have some font names in there. You might have some images, and the same with the images and colours as well. Because obviously, red, blue, dark red, and black can be interpreted in many different ways. So I'm going to say on here, in order to improve the mind map, I would suggest the addition of some images to help illustrate the colours. So I can put on here, for example, dark red could be interpreted in many different ways. I would also include font names or images of similar fonts to help the graphics department understand the vision for the magazine style. And there you go. So we've done exactly the same again. We've done our introduction on here. We've done our strength on here. Let me zoom up a little bit. There we go. So we've done our introduction. We've mentioned what the document is, who it's going to be given to, and what the context is. We talked about the central node. We said why that's helpful. We've talked about the subnodes. We said why that's helpful. We've talked about the limitation, the fact that they're not connected, and why that's a problem. Same again, that the content's not relevant, why that's a problem. And we've given a sensible improvement that is linked to the context of the magazine. Okay, so it's just following this all the way through. So let's look at a further example, shall we? Now this one here is a mood board, okay? So again, grabbing that highlighter or the pencil. So this is a mood board, and it's going to be given to, for the Victorian era section of the ride. The mood board is to be given to the pre-production team, who are going to create some pre-production materials for this section, okay? So let me just go up a little bit so you can see it. So this is the context here. Progressive Park is a theme park. It's going to have a new virtual reality ride going through different parts of the United Kingdom. So essentially what's going to be happening here is this mood board is going to be given to a pre-production team to create more pre-production materials. So they're probably going to create a storyboard of what the ride's going to look like, or they might kind of come up with some more concepts of visualization diagrams for the artwork, you know, for what things might look like as you go around. So here is our mood board in front of us here. So again, just like I always do, I'm going to pop in here a text box, and then we're going to add in some vague strengths and weaknesses to get us started. So strengths and weaknesses, not weaknesses, weaknesses. All right, so the strength I'm going to put on here is that there is a wide variety of images. Excellent. I would say that there is also a common theme, so you can tell straight away this is a Victorian or vintage theme. So theme is coherent. Weaknesses. I'm going to put on here there's no colour. Now obviously that may be intended, that this intended is going to be black and white, but it's not clear on here there's going to be colour. There's no colour. I'm also going to say on here you've got kind of limited kind of fonts, things like that. You've got these two on here, but it's not particularly clear. So I'm going to say lack of fonts on here. And again, what you could do here is, be bearing in mind this is going to be an animation. You could do with some more interactive elements, because it doesn't say it's not going to be a digital mood board. So no digital elements such as video or audio. Okay, so let's take this, and again we're going to go create our written answer for it. So here we go, new page. Right, let's get my text box in. And voila. So again, I'm going to start exactly the same. So I've forgotten the name of the figure. This one is figure 2. It's a figure 2 one again. So we're going to go figure 2. So the mood board in figure 2 is somewhat suitable to be given to the pre-production team who will create pre-production documents for the theme park ride. Okay, and I'm going to say this is because whilst there is a lot of relevant images, there is not enough material. I'm going to put particularly audio and video to give a clear vision of how the ride might work. Okay, so again, we're going to go into our strengths. So I'm going to go on here and say one strength of the mood board is that there are many images. This will be helpful for the pre-production team, as they will know what areas, gosh, I can't spell today, what areas of Victorian life the ride for Progressive Park, we'll put the name of it, Progressive Park, want to focus on in that section of the ride. Okay, so I'm going to put on here a further strength is that the included images and fonts are all relevant to the period. This will help the pre-production team see the vision for the overall ride and ensure that they keep within this theme when creating the pre-production documents. Okay, so we've got our strengths in there. Let's have a look at some weaknesses now, which is where we can really get carried away. So I'm going to say for the fact that whilst the Victorian era was mostly captured in black and white, there is no colour palettes included in this mood board. This may cause some confusion for the pre-production team, as they will not know which colours, if any, the Progressive Parks team wish to include on the ride. And then I'm going to go to my second one. As the ride will be an interactive virtual reality ride, there is a lack of audio and video content on the mood board. This will hinder the pre-production team's progress, as they will not have any idea of the sounds and the kind of like feel of the Victorian life that Progressive Park is looking for in the ride. Okay, so I would say to improve this mood board, I would suggest that the designer adds a wider variety of media, including audio and digital, to help the pre-production team better understand the Victorian way of life that they wish to include on the virtual reality ride. They also need to include more colour information so that the pre-production team can interpret this correctly when creating their pre-production documents. Okay, there we go. So this one was a little bit trickier. I always find that mood boards are a little bit, particularly in this case, because obviously you've got a mood board for something that's going to be an interactive ride essentially, so it's a little bit difficult. So it's not going to be for like a poster or anything like that. So there we go. So we've got anyway on there our summary, our 2 strengths, our 2 weaknesses, and an area for improvement. So one more we're going to look at today, which is going to be the visualization diagram. And again, let's start by highlighting the key points. So Zeta Level's the client here, and Zeta Level's the client here, and they're launching a construction toy based on building blocks. And you can see it's going to be coming up in the festive season in December. So we've been asked to create pre-production documents which will be seen on TV, radio, and internet. So this is the first draft of a visualization diagram for a digital graphic to be given to the graphic artist to create. And the digital graphic will be used as an advert on the internet and in paper-based publications. So this is basically an advert for these construction toys. So again, let's go into the text mode. Let's do our strengths. So I'm going to start with the fact that there is clearly an evident layout. So there is a clear layout. We have got the inclusion of images as well. I say that, image. There's only one. Alright, weaknesses. There are no annotations at all. A lot of white space. And the text is not clear. So the text is not clear. For example, title. What could that mean? What's that going to be on there? Okay, so again, we're just going to follow that same structure again. So this time we've got figure 2 again. So let's go onto the new page. Let's start our text box. Let's draw that on here. So I'm going to say the visualization diagram. You can see how this is going now, can't you? Visual diagram in figure 2, which is to be given to the graphics department to create graphics to advertise. Again, key terms in there. The construction block toys on the internet and paper-based publications and I'm going to say in this case not particularly suitable because it lacks a lot of detail and information to make it useful for the graphics department to be able to create a meaningful graphic. All the sort of graphics repeated there, but they don't actually sound here. It's going to be a poster, so it's just going to be creating a digital graphic. So we don't know what it's going to look like yet. All right, so let's go into those strengths again, shall we? So I'm going to say one strength of the visualization diagram is that there is an attempt at a layout. This will aid the graphics department when creating the digital graphic, as they will know where items should be positioned. Okay, nice and easy one there. A further strength of the visualization diagram is that it includes an image of the child playing with the blocks. This will help the graphics department as they know what should be in that space. There is also some images of the building blocks and a wall. So, oh, well, there's an extra row there. So that the graphics team know where to place those two. And now I'm going to go on to the weaknesses. And I'm going to go with, however, there are a number of weaknesses with this diagram. I'm going to say, firstly, there is a lack of annotations provided. This will hinder the progress of the graphics department, as they will not know, for example, what color things should be and what style font should be used. That's one example there. A further weakness is there is no information given on the title. The graphics department won't know whether they want to include the name of the brand, a slogan, or something else, which will make it difficult when creating the digital graphic. So let's go into improvements. So to improve this visualization diagram, I would suggest the designer clearly annotates all of the elements to help make it clearer for the graphic department designer. There is a lot of white space in this diagram, and it's not clear if this should be left blank or if a background should be provided, and the annotations would help clear this up. There we go. So again, I've got my introduction, what it is, who it's for, the context of the graphics, the building blocks. Then I've got my first strength in here, why it's a strength, why it will help the graphics department. Another strength, why that will help the graphics department. Another weakness, why that's a weakness for the graphics department. A further weakness, and again why that's a weakness. And then an improvement, which again is linked to the context. So again, why this is going to be helpful when it comes to creating that poster. Now, hopefully this has been helpful for you. Obviously, there's 4 examples in there. As far as I'm aware, you won't be asked as a 12-mark question to improve on a script. I believe it's only ever going to be these 4 documents on there. Now, hopefully this has helped. If there's anything else I can do to help support you, please do let me know. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you for another video soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.